episode 19. We're talking with our lovely friend, Michael Mariani. Should I just go for my question?
Yes,
Okay.
go
Does
ahead.
anybody want to say anything? No, everybody's good? Okay. So I was just going to ask because we've had the past couple of times that we all got together, we had really interesting conversations with you about the experiences that you've had in your job or jobs throughout the years. And I would love to hear any part of it that if you like to share, because some parts of it is very interesting. But I wanted to ask, what is one main thing that you gathered out of all of these years working with different people in different companies, many years of experiences and challenges? What is maybe the biggest challenge or one thing that you took away that could, I don't know, help someone who's just starting to get into the workforce? And
So the reason why I mentioned earlier that dumb luck, I had dumb luck, right? And that was because I landed. So I've always been a morning person ever since I was a little kid. I don't know why, but I'm just a morning. Some people are morning people, some people aren't. Kay is not a morning person. She stays up until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's when she's, reading and doing stuff. And I just, there's no way I could stay up that late. But again, I'm up at 4 in the morning, and she's up at 8 in the morning, sort of thing. So when I went to San Francisco, I didn't really have a plan. It was very spontaneous. And so I had some work, but not enough work to really keep me going, make enough money, basically. And I had gone with another person I knew who was my friend at the time. We're not friends anymore. And he had left his wife, long story. I'll not go into that story. But at some point, we needed to have more money coming in. The three of us lived in a house. So I went to the newspaper. People used to do that back then. This was February of 1983. And I saw an ad for a business that had 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. start time. And I thought, well, I'm a morning person. And how many people are going to apply for that job? Maybe I didn't fully think that through, but I did think, okay, I can do this. So I had one jacket. It was sort of a tweed jacket. And I put on my one tweed jacket and I went down to interview. And it was just a starting position stock boy at a business in the flower market in San Francisco. And so I got interviewed by this gentleman. His name was Robert Suleski. He was the assistant controller or office manager. I don't know exactly what his title was. And so I don't remember exactly the interview except the very last thing. And he asked me, why should we hire you and not somebody else? And I said, well, if you don't hire me, you'll regret it. I was 16, right? I mean, this is crazy. And on my application, which I worked at that job for 39 years at that company, and on my application, the employment application, written in the margins, Bob had written, very aggressive. Right? Which is funny, right? You're there 39 years, right? And so I got the job, and it was right at a great time. It was a family-owned business that had been in that business since 1930s.
wow.
The guy who started it went off to World War II. When he came back, he started a new business in LA. So there were the two businesses. And these two guys, these two brothers, one of them had been going to Berkeley. He got a job there just to get a job, and he was running this business. And so he was very smart. His name was Larry Shepard. And they ended up buying half the company. It was two families. They bought out one of the founding family. They bought him out. And so now they were owners. And this was probably about 86, so I'd been there for years. And they ended up consolidating, and they ended up making the headquarters down in Southern California. As a matter of fact, the headquarters were in Camarillo, which is why I ended up in Camarillo. All right. Or I ended up in Ventura to work in Camarillo. And so Larry Shepard had an MBA. He was the older brother. He was the star brother. He was the ace, number one golf on the golf team. Their father was a golfer, so that was very important in their family. He was a pilot in Vietnam. He was in the Air Force. He was just the perfect older brother, and I think that there was definitely some dynamics there with the younger brother. He had already gone to LA to represent the family before they owned the business. So I came in 83. He had left for LA in 81. Dennis, his brother, he brought him into the business. He was the boss of the store. He was my boss's boss. I had like a store manager as my boss. And somehow out of all this, Larry, both Dennis and Larry, but mostly Larry, recognized this young gentleman who was very, some people call me a sponge, right? I was just absorbing everything. And so we sort of had a relationship. And again, that hurt my relationship with his younger brother, who was my boss, right? Because I had sort of a better relationship with his brother. I see this all in retrospect now, right? At that time, I was just excited. And when I mentioned earlier about my craving a family, well, my biological father was gone before I even knew who he was. He was gone when I was weeks old. My mom remarried another gentleman. I never really, got close to that person. He also left. So what I've realized about myself over the years is I've always been looking for that father that I never had. And so older men who, in my life have represented people who I've been very fortunate to have some people, including Larry and Dennis, who's the younger brother, but mostly Larry. And Larry had an MBA, and he was larger than life, right? He was so smart. He was wicked smart. But he also wasn't very good with his people skills. So he was a yeller. He was somebody that could just tear people apart with his words and his screaming and yelling. And it was just not something that I really never, for the most part, never got it directly aimed at me, but it was always aimed at somebody near me or, just in general. And so I'm really fortunate that I learned a lot about business from that gentleman. I studied business. I never had an MBA, but Larry was very quick to tell me I learned more on the job than, the MBA doesn't mean anything. He had the MBA and it didn't matter. What mattered was what we did there. So I read a lot, and that's something else I got from Kay. Kay is a huge reader, right? Kay reads 52 books a year, one a week on average.
Oh, wow.
I read about half that, right? And a lot of what I read, I don't so much anymore, was books about business and management and trying to understand that whole process of, and it's not easy, it's crazy. And there's a lot written about it. So you can read all day long about, that stuff. And so the question was, can you summarize it in one, sort of like one thing? I don't think I can.
I think you already gave out
Yeah.
so many tricks for a younger person who wants to get a job
Well, I mean, the advice
with 5 minutes of explanation.
Yeah, I mean, the advice generally, I guess part of the reason why I'm careful is I don't like, there's a lot of gratuitous advice or advice that people don't really follow. And so I want to be careful to not just throw out those sort of things that maybe people are like, oh yeah, I hear that, but they're true. So many of them are true, right? You guys have, I don't know if you've met Hassan, but I think you might have.
Yes,
but
we did.
We've had Hassan
On
as a
your
very
birthday.
good friend. Hassan is from Iran. He came in 88 with nothing. He left everything behind, came with his 2 kids and his wife, and started from zero. And, he was my right-hand person. I mean, he was so integral. He's still there. His birthday was today. He's 74 years old today. I went and celebrated his birthday at the warehouse today with everybody celebrating.
Happy birthday, Hassan.
He's still there, right? It's crazy because he just is still feels that it's a sense of purpose. So between the two of us, because I don't want to take full credit, because he's another person that I've been very fortunate to have him in my life. Things like work harder. Hassan was in charge of the staff. And so he was in charge of the staff of a warehouse picking orders, right? So you're not going to get your rocket scientist coming through the door to do that job, right? And unfortunately, a lot of these youngsters probably don't have 2 parents at home. Their mom's probably at work all the time. So they don't have that father figure, right? So in some ways he did, but it really frustrated him because they didn't get that basic work ethic. And so he tries, but his trying isn't really, he's not their father. So, but he would say, You call every Monday in sick, then you want to complain about not getting a raise. You say, you haven't made that connection. You do more than you're asked. That's like the most basic piece of advice. Do more than you're asked. Be helpful. Be helpful to other people. Be a person that people want to be around. Kay has this thing about all the pretty girls at school, and I wasn't always the prettiest girl, and so she sort of made a conscious effort when she was younger that she isn't the prettiest girl, so she's going to make sure that she's somebody that you want to be with. She's not going to be pouty, or she's not going to be. It's kind of an interesting concept because I think Kay is pretty, but that's
beautiful.
her own. Yeah, it's her own self thing. But be somebody that people want to be around. Be helpful. Try to learn as much as you can, and be reliable, and always do more than you're asked. And again, the reason I'm hesitant is because those are the kinds of things like yeah, but they're true.
Exactly.
They're true. That's what you got to do. So and
We didn't mention about your job. You didn't went to university.
no, I didn't.
You
even
didn't
finish
get
high
the
school.
MBA.
No.
But right now, I know that you are programming and you're managing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and you've been doing
Sure.
for the past 30 some years?
Yeah. So I finished up the other job. I was the general manager of the company. So they do about 30 million in revenue, had 20 stores, 135 employees, something like that. So general manager, you sort of in charge of everything, really, running the company. The new job is a step back from that. The new job is just in IT, doing support. I am a manager. I manage one person. That's about as much as I can handle at this point in my career. He's a great young man, and I'm happy to manage him because he's very easy to manage. He's a very hard worker. So the computers thing, that was just sort of a hobby. But I was able to parlay that at the old business. We were not computerized, right? So as we became computerized, guess who did it? And then as I learned more, I realized, I can do the programs. And so I did the program. So a lot of the programs to basically run the business were written by me. We had programmers working on and off, so it wasn't 100% my effort, but a lot of it was directed and, this is what we need. Okay, let's figure out how to do it. There's a very funny story. The gentleman who did our flowers for our wedding has a flower shop in Pacific Heights, very nice neighborhood in San Francisco. Patrick Powell is his name. He owns Bloomer's Flowers on Washington Street, 2975 Washington Street.
Wow.
I was so proud one day in probably 1990 or 91 that I had figured out on the computer how to use people's phone numbers to bring up their account. So you come in and you say, what's your phone number? You put in the phone number, it brings up the account. So it was a Saturday morning, he came in. I said, Patrick, look, let me have your phone number. I won't forget that phone number, 415-563-3266. You put in the phone number and it brought up his account. He said, that's kind of cool. And I put in his order and I went to print and nothing printed.
Oh,
And what I didn't realize at the time was I had added some space or something in there, not realizing that I now corrupted all the data in the. But my testing, all I did in my test was I put in the phone number and bring up the account. I didn't actually go and print the order and I made it live. These are all lessons I learned. Right? I made it live on the computer. From that day forward, anytime I was in the store teaching somebody on the computer and Patrick was in the store, you would hear Patrick. He would be on 2 aisles over and he'd say, ask them for their phone number. So it was a running joke for many years with him. But the computer allowed me to do something that I would not have done. It was timing. It was just the timing of the whole thing. And so in 92, we put computers in our 12 stores that we had at the time. I wrote programs to allow us to do all that point of sale stuff, et cetera. And so that gave me maybe some job security, I'm not sure, but but also managing at the same time. And managing is interesting. The thing I've noticed about managing in businesses, and I've only worked for mostly just two businesses, but they're both the same, small businesses. The company I work for now maybe has 150 employees. Mm-hmm. People get promoted to be a manager, mm-hmm. and a lot of people think that's it. You are a great worker. We're going to make you a manager because that's a promotion. We're going to give you more money. We're going to give you a title. Isn't that great? Great. Okay. But wait a minute. What did I do to demonstrate that I can actually manage people, because what I was doing before wasn't managing people, it was managing myself. Now, true, that's a skill you need to have. First, you need to manage yourself. That's not something I just figured out. That's something I read, and I recognize that. If you're not good at managing yourself, you're not going to be good at managing people. Exactly. That's okay. Exactly. But that happens all the time. It's happened everywhere I've worked. It continues to happen. And it's such an interesting phenomenon to me that people don't take the job of manager seriously enough. So I really tried at the last job to put some effort. And I remember what I did was, it wasn't anything super magical. We set up a training website. And for the managers, I said, okay, we're going to read some books. We're going to start with this book. It's called First Time Manager. We're going to read this other book, The 27 Challenges Every Manager Faced. And then at the end of each chapter, you're going to take a quiz, and I'm going to grade the quiz. Cool. I get to be a professor. I never went to college. I get to be a professor. But what was interesting was some of the reaction. Now, there was mixed reactions. Some manager, and so here's why. Some managers like, oh my God, why did we do this 20 years ago? Other managers, you didn't hear anything, or they didn't do it. I had to push them. And I realized, okay, so which one do you think was the better manager, and which one do you think wasn't the better manager, right? And so, yeah, you put them into their uncomfort zone, out of their comfort zone, right? Because accountability is important, and that also is a very important thing in business. If you're going to make sure that the business is successful, people need to be accountable. Exactly. If you're not accountable, then all bets are off, right? So that's something that I think has really, what's the phrase? A craw, where something bothers you. That's something that's really bothered me over the years, is how people become managers and people don't really, they kind of think that's the end. And to me, that's like the beginning, right? You need to really give them the tools and skills to be a manager. What does that mean? And it's this thing called soft skills. And that's a whole different, we can sit here and play numbers all day long and be like, well, that's a good selling item. That's not a good selling item. That has a good margin. That doesn't have good margin. All of those things are easy because they're hard. It's just like black or white. But when it comes to managing people, we were riding our bicycles the other night. We went by this little Mexican restaurant that we go by, and out on the corner was the fellow, and we've only been there a couple of times, but we know the guy who owns it because he's in the kitchen. It's just him. It's an open kitchen. You can see in the kitchen. And he's out on the corner with this young woman, right? And the whole body language, right? Something had happened. She was upset. And he's having this conversation with her. And I didn't hear the words as we passed, but as we passed, I said to Kay, I do not miss that one bit, right? That is, he's having some heart-to-heart, he's having to tell her whatever, she's not doing a good job, or maybe she got in an argument with another employee or whatever. And I thought that's not something I miss, because it's hard. It's really hard to manage people.
Very true. Exactly. God, and sorry, we were laughing. I want to make sure she's okay.
No,
we were
I'm
laughing
fine.
a little extra because as you said that thing, and she was laughing, and she kind of hit her head over there.
That's okay. It was
is your brain bleeding?
Yes, yeah, brain. It was so funny that the story that you said. I was like dying.
But that's exactly and just like you said, when people are seeing that you or one person has that accountability and self-discipline, they know that they can also do the same for others and just become
but it's a whole different thing. That's just a starting point.
Just having that to go
you can organize yourself and you can be a really organized person, but when you try to organize somebody else who isn't organized, can you imagine when you're a very organized person how frustrating it is? And then you have to try to figure out how, it's in some cases it's just not possible.
It takes a lot of people skills and a lot of the training, just like what you were saying. Every
training is such
company,
a huge thing.
every institute should have training for their managers.
And I think a lot of people say that, but it's hard, and so maybe they don't end up doing it exactly. They don't. It's just you got to do it. Period. And if you want to be successful, Hassan used to get very upset with me because I would always compare us to Starbucks, and the reason why I'd say that is like, Starbucks has 20,000 stores, okay? How do you train people for 20,000 stores? It's not you found the 20,000 people that are really good. No, what you need is a very good system of training. And so I've been in the store. They have a recipe book. I saw them sitting at a table, and they were almost doing like cue cards or flashcards, right? You have to have that structure. And he got upset because, well, we're not Starbucks. I said, no, I know. The point, I'm not trying
It's
to
the
say that.
structure
It's the
that would-
structure.
yeah.
The point I'm trying to make is when you go to a job, hey, Michael, new guy, great. Here's Marzi. She's going to show you how to do your job. Hey, Michael, how you doing? Good. All right, let me show you how to do the job. You're going to go this. Yeah, sometimes it's that. What I do is I hit it on the side. Yeah, okay. Now let me show you how to do it over here. Yeah, this doesn't always work this way. What I do is this. And what you're getting is you're getting the filtered version of how Marzi does the job. But you know what? Maybe Marzi isn't doing it the right way. What you need is you need a central, program
System,
that's
yeah.
a system of training that, you can replicate. You need that structure. It sounds, yeah, of course, totally makes sense, right? Easier said than done. That's the key. That's why it doesn't happen, because you get busy with the other stuff you need to do. Here, just talk to Marzi. She'll teach you. She's great. She'll teach you how to do it, right? And you hope that Marzi's teaching them correctly, because with each person, now she just trained me, and then in 6 months they give me, oh, I'm going to teach Miriam. Okay, Miriam, here we go. Let me show you how to do it. Well, Marzi did it that way, and I'm not going to do it the way Marzi did. I'm going to do it my way because I like my way.
And by the time it gets to the fourth or fifth person,
it's like
the whole
that
system's
telephone
it's
game,
go-
right?
Exactly.
You say something to somebody in the front of the room, and by the time it gets to the back, it's something different. So, yeah, training is key, but it's also really hard. So,
I want to go back. Actually, I want to go to the different subject and different area. We want to come out from the land and right on the boat. Tell us about your sailing, and that's a very interesting subject to talk.
well, it's pretty straightforward. I surf. Kay doesn't. The boys left. And one day we were having a conversation, and Kay suggested, what do you think about, I think maybe the conversation was like, what can we do together? You don't surf, I surf. And so she said, what about sailing? I sailed as a young person. So we went and took sailing lessons in Ventura. This was 2014. And we took semi-private, which meant it was just the two of us and the instructor. And we did the training, we passed the training. And he said if we wanted to continue on, he told us there was a club in Oxnard that's a very reasonable price, because there's no, it's a yacht club. Well, yacht club usually has a clubhouse, and you pay dues and you go and eat and drink at like a regular country club. And he said they don't have a clubhouse. It's owned by the members. It's a co-op. And, it's a very reasonable price. So we went and checked out the club and decided that was good. That was 2014.
14.
Yeah. And we started sailing on little 22-foot boats. You'd take them out for the day. You'd maybe sail 2 or 3 miles offshore and come back. And then the club, you move up, and then you get to the medium boats. And the medium boats have a bathroom and a little kitchen. And so you can go and stay overnight if you are so trained and get, the proper checkout, et cetera. And so we did that. And then you progress through the training through, it's the ASA, American Sailing Association. So you start with 101, it's your basic sailing keel boat. Then you do 103, which is like offshore, going out on the ocean. And then a 104 is a cruise. Cruising is overnight, and you have to it's a little more rigorous. And so we got very fortunate, because one of the guys in the club also worked for another company, Marina Sailing, and they do what's called a flotilla. They rent a bunch of boats somewhere, and they take them out. And so they did a Greece flotilla, and he thought that was a cool idea, but he wanted to do it on his own because he didn't want to spend the money. So he said, would you guys want to go to Greece? Yeah. So 5 of us went on a boat in Greece, and I asked the training people, because both the guys that were on the boat besides me were trainers in the club, and I said, can I use this as my 104 training checkout, which means when we get back, I will be checked out to go on cruises by myself. So we spent a week in Greece, the 5 of us, and we rented a boat, and we sailed around Greece. And there wasn't a lot of wind. It was a good experience. We learned some things about it. We learned that, when you go somewhere, we had 5 Americans on a boat. We didn't see a whole lot of the Greek culture. So for us, when we travel, we would be more interested in having more interaction with the Greek culture. It was just us. We'd go to these desolate islands. Okay, so there were some Greek goats, but that was about it. And then in, I think it was around 16, this is that extrovert thing we were talking about before. We were in Morro Bay. We did some kayaking there, and there was a beautiful sailboat. And I had learned that the sailing clubs have reciprocals, which means that if you belong to one sailing club, some clubs will offer you reciprocals, and you can go and stay and use their stuff. And then when they come, they use ours. Now, of course, with our club, that doesn't really apply. We don't have a clubhouse, right? It's like, if you want, you can come and stay in our parking lot, but there's nothing else. So I saw this couple, and they had, her hair was wet. She had just used the facility, like taking a shower, right? And so they were getting on their boat, and they were going on their way. And I looked them up on the internet. Actually, I asked Kay, what do you think that language is? She said, that might be Dutch. So I looked it up, and I found the boat on the internet, or I found what I thought was the boat on the internet, and I reached out to them, and the guy said, no, that's not me. It was Whitraff, and it means white raven, and it's very rare. And he said, that's not our boat, but they're our friends here. Here's how you get a hold of them. And of course, I couldn't resist. And I said, well, if it's so rare, how did I find two of you in one day, right? So I got a hold of these people, and I just said, it looks like you're heading south. If you're going to Ventura, we'd love to have you for dinner. So there's the extrovert part, right? Just like reaching out, right? And they said, wow, that's great. Okay, we'll let you know. Now, Morro Bay by car is about a 2.5-hour drive. Now, we heard from them 3 weeks later. And what they did was, offshore of where we live are the Channel Islands. And there's, I think there's 4 that are right in this. I think there might be 7 total, but there's 4 right in this area. So they spent 3 weeks on this boat going around these islands. When they showed up in Ventura, they were a Dutch couple. They had been on the boat permanently for 10 years. Wow. They lived on their boat. They had come over from the Netherlands to Alaska. And they were on their way to Mexico. So they stayed here for, I think, 10 days. We lent them the car. They went to Hollywood. We had some dinners.
That's nice.
We had some people that had been married a long time come to dinner, and the first question everybody asked was like, how do you do it? How do you live on that boat 10 years? Just the 2 of you on the boat, right? And she was very honest. She said, it took about 2 years to kind of get their groove, and, they get into arguments, and she would just go to the front of the boat and sit on the front of the boat. She couldn't go anywhere, right? So very lovely couple. And then we ended up sailing with them in Mexico for a week. So the sailing has opened a lot of doors for us. Kay's good with it. We've gone out to the islands and stayed out there many, many nights in a row. We've taken the kids out there and stayed. It's just the islands you can get out to the islands in probably about 5 hours on a sailboat. So it's opened up this whole new world for us. That it's been great. We can go out for the day. You guys are always welcome if you want to go out sailing.
Yes, yes, we are.
Yeah, we live in a wonderful area, and it's something that we try to remind ourselves often how fortunate we are. All the things in our life, how fortunate we are. And living where we live is, we should take advantage of.
Yeah, and use those opportunities.
And those islands are right there. They're a national park, and they are amazing. They are just amazing. And so that's the sailing story.
Oh, God.
That is awesome.
How can I come back?
I was going to ask if you guys, because that's about 9 years of experience so far. Am I right?
Yeah.
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 Are you guys comfortable enough to just go out in the middle of the ocean, and if it's stormy, you can still sail your way back? Part
of your training is to understand when to go out and when not to go out. Right?
Okay.
And so you're watching the weather continuously.
Okay.
And if it's going to be bad weather, you're not going to go out. That's
so
the proper skipper is not going to put themselves or anybody in danger. So we've had to scrap trips before with the weather not cooperating, and we've also been out there when I remember. Yeah, let's see. Probably the most interesting was in Greece, and I was at the helm, which means I was at the wheel, and we got hit by a squall. So out of nowhere, we saw the storm. It was further away. So basically, in a moment, the boat sort of tips over because the sail is up for almost no wind, and then suddenly 40 knots of wind hit the sail, so the boat's going to heel way over. We had just served coffee, and there was coffee everywhere. Coffee went flying. Everybody was safe. There's no problem with that. And the other things that are kind of wild cards is anchoring. So when you go out to the islands, you got to put down an anchor, and you want to. So the first time we ever did it, I had an app on my phone, and it used GPS, and it drew a circle around the boat. And so if the boat went outside of that circle, an alarm would go off, right? Because you don't want to, you want to sleep, but at the same time, So we went to sleep. The alarm went off. I freaked out. I ran up, look, and we're exactly where we were. Okay, So I made the circle a little bit bigger. Okay, I went back to sleep. The alarm went off again. I got up. I freaked out. I looked around. We're exactly where we haven't moved, right? I made the circle a little bigger. By the third or fourth time, I just turned the damn thing off and said, all right, well, we're not going anywhere. Every time I get up, we're exactly where we were. But you have to be careful. And
Maybe it's they made it sensitive on purpose so that it's extra safe, or
no, I think the boat swings.
Yeah.
So even though
And
the
it
anchor
shows
stays in the same spot, if you don't have two anchors, which means you don't have one out the front and the back, which you can at times, if you're just dropping the front anchor, the boat is going to swing with the current and the wind, and so the boat's going to move. It can go circle around the anchor stays where it's at, but that's also it's just all part of
That is
the
amazing.
process.
Wow.
So
You have GPS and,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah,
Sure.
Wi-Fi like everywhere.
no, you don't have Wi-Fi. The cell service stops when you get out to the islands. You don't. It's a little spotty. You might find it in some. You shouldn't rely on it.
But with the satellite, the new satellite, you are
GPS.
able to get the satellite from the Starlight, right?
Not Starlink, but
Starlink, yes.
but you have GPS. There are chart plotters on the boat that have GPS. You have your phone that has GPS.
Okay.
You don't need cellular for that.
Okay.
Or Wi-Fi. You don't need that for that. But yeah, you do have that, and you have electronics that will help you. But also, we're very fortunate. We're if it's not foggy, which fog is a wild card, but we're very close. You can generally see the islands. You can generally see,
Right.
shore. It's 25 miles out to Santa Cruz. It's about 11 miles out to Anacapa. So, it's not like you're in the wild open ocean. I mean, a lot of stuff can happen. I don't want to diminish it completely, but yeah, I think that,
And then if these are the things that I really don't know. When you sail, do you have to have it's like a car, you go park, or there is a place or spot that you have to reserve it when you go? For example, you're sailing from here, Ventura Harbor, you're going to Catalina Island. Do you have to reserve a spot to park your...
Sure. Catalina is a little bit different. And the reason why it is actually, people live on Catalina. There's a city on Catalina, okay? The rest of the islands are not developed at all. So they're like going to the desert, or, there's just, there's a little bit of camping on some of the islands with some pit toilets, but they really don't have anything, no services. Catalina is different. So you asked about Catalina. Catalina has a city. It has another place called Two Harbors, which has got, facilities, restaurants, things like that. Catalina is also different that they have this thing called mooring balls. Okay, so what they've done is they've put these floating balls on anchors, which are like big cement blocks that sit on the ground. So when you go to Catalina, you don't drop an anchor for the most part. There's some places you could drop, but the most part you have these balls that have lines or ropes on them, and so you drive up to those with your boat and you hook on, you tie on, and it's much easier than anchoring. You have to pay for that. In some cases, they do accept reservations ahead of time, and because at high season you need to make sure you have a spot.
Right.
We went 2019. We went to Catalina. It's about a 12-hour journey from Oxnard, so it took us all day to get there. We went with another couple, and I made reservations. We'd never been there before, so I made an extra $8, whatever, for the reservation on top of the nightly fee. And when we got there, there were 2 boats out of 50 mooring balls. I realized, okay. So you can just show up, and there's these guys in the little boats cruising around. You're like, okay, they'll take your credit card, and okay, you got to stay for one night. And then when you go to the city, which is Avalon, there's a little harbor, and you can tie up on those. Now, what I learned on that last trip was those mooring balls are owned by people. Okay. And the agreement is when those people aren't there, the place can rent them.
Oh, so by the residents, basically.
So they own it. They have their name like on the ball. It's the name of the boat, right? So we went to the city. Our friends wanted to go. All right, we'll go. So we stayed 2 nights in the city, right? So our boat is in the water. We have to take our little dinghy, or you can call somebody and they'll come on a boat and taxi, and you pay them to take you to the shore, right? But we had our own little rubber boat. We don't need to do that. So after the second night, the next morning we were going to go. The guy came by and he said, "Are you guys going?" We said, "Yeah, we're planning to go." He said, "Good, because the owner's coming, and if you want to stay, you have to move to a different ball because the owner has radioed us and told us they're on their way out." So it's an interesting arrangement that
Yeah.
they have. But that's mooring balls. That only exists here in Catalina. If you go to the other islands, you have to set an anchor. You have to drop an anchor and lock that, put that anchor on the ground to hold the boat in place. And then you're on anchor for the night.
How do you realize that? Because I heard that our islands on the back, they are very shallow. It's very deep, one of the deepest area. How do you know where to drop the anchors that it's going to get to the ground?
So a couple of things. So first of all, there's a guidebook. Okay, there's a UC Santa Barbara professor, probably in the 1980s, I think. I think he was an archaeology professor, but he loved sailing. And Fagan is his name, I think, or Finnegan. And he wrote, no, it's Fagan. He wrote a book that he documented. He sailed the islands. He documented every what we call anchorage, every spot that you could sort of tuck in with your boat in great detail. The type of ground, which means is it sand, is it grass, is it rock, how deep is it? Blah. Now with modern GPS and equipment, you have a depth meter, right? So that's very helpful for you because you can see exactly how deep the water is. So we're generally dropping an anchor in 30 feet of water, and we're inside an anchorage, so we're inside a cove where we're protected because you want to be protected from the wind. And depending on which way the wind is coming, there's all these different little places. And so he'll say, this spot is good if the wind's coming from the west. Of course, he doesn't take into account that the wind changes too during the night. So you might be good, and that's true. You might be good when you start, but you might not be good later. And so, yeah, so there's a copy of that book on every boat. And I have a copy on my iPad, and I have a paper copy as well. Because it's great, you read, and we've been to some of those. There's plenty. Santa Cruz Island is 100 square miles. It's a big island, and so there's a lot of places that we haven't been to yet, but we've been to a few. And as far as the depth goes, somebody asked me that recently. How deep is it? And I said, well, I know it gets certain. So I looked it up, and I think what you're talking about, you may know this already, but Santa Cruz Island is the big island. Just beyond that island is the Santa Cruz Channel. It's deeper than the Grand Canyon. So, yeah, I mean, it's like over a mile plus deep, right? It's deep. You're never going to get to that depth. It's like, but there's, when you sail out, I think the depth thing stops at 500 or something. It starts flashing because it doesn't, read it anymore, but there's plenty there. But when you get close to the island, it gets shallow, and you need to be careful, right? You got the waves, you got a lot of different things you have to navigate. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of challenging, but it's not, it's, if you know what you're doing. It's,
and you took all the training classes. You learned.
Yeah, that doesn't mean. That still doesn't mean. Unless there's people that sail all the time that are really much better sailors than we are. We're kind of weekend warriors, but still, as long as you know the basics and you practice prudence, caution, you'll probably be okay. But so what do? You go out and you anchor. You go ashore in your dinghy. Maybe you have some kayaks. There's a lot of caves, so it's kind of cool to kayak around. Wow. You can go on shore and hike. There's some beautiful hikes.
Lots of foxes.
Swim. Yeah, the island fox. Right, exactly. But you don't have to sail. I mean, you can take the island packer boats. They go out, all the time, all day long. They're going out to all the islands. And so it's pretty special.
I bet. I'm very excited about that. Go ahead, Mariani.
I was thinking about your, usually Mariam has a question that at the end when we're kind of getting ready to wrap up, it's like, I'm going to ask it, but basically, what's next? What is coming for Michael from here on? What's the plan for the future?
Well, I think that after this many years of working, I can see for sure trying to back off from working so much and trying to, play with some of the. I would love to have the opportunity to do some teaching, do some tutoring, help, maybe with some programming. So there's a place on the west side on Ventura Avenue where I know the teacher who sort of started this place up. And I've done a little bit of teaching with him before with some kids, teaching them programming. And I just think that in this day and age, I mean, it's an opportunity for a lot of kids. So maybe that, but I think in general, just maybe trying to figure out how to work a little bit less. sail a little bit more, travel a little bit more.
Nice, nice. But no retirement yet? Oops.
Yeah, sorry.
Go
No,
ahead.
I know. I was going to say that we always, like, I think we saw you guys more than anybody else's. You're always everywhere with Kay. It's like Ojai Festival. We were coming and you were there.
Yeah.
We were walking on the beach, like, I think it was like maybe 7-8 months ago with my parents. We bumped to them. They were bike riding with Kay. You guys learn how to enjoy your life and use every moment of it. And I think you never wasted it.
Well, I think it's interesting that you say that the way you say it, because in order for you to have seen us in all of these places, you had to have been in all those places yourself, right? So I would say right back at you, because that's...
It's the two extroverts in both families
Right.
pulling everyone out of the house.
Well, I'll tell you, we did a sailing trip to the island, Santa Cruz Island, and we finished the last night in Santa Barbara. So you come across from the island to Santa Barbara, and there's a great book called Diary of a Sea Captain's Wife, if you ever get a chance to read it. Early 1900s, a wife and her husband built a boat in their backyard, and he used to shuttle the movie stars over to this one area, and they used to film some movies over there. And so anyway, we came across from there, and we stayed one night in Santa Barbara. And the way it works is you get a guest slip. They charge you $1 a foot for your boat. We had a 38-foot boat. So for $40, we had waterfront property in Santa Barbara. We went into town. There were three of us, Kay, myself, and another friend of ours who was joined us. We're in a coffee shop, and I hear these two people talking, a man and a woman. And I'm thinking, that sounds like Italian. Maybe I said, excuse me, what language is that? He said, Italian. I said, oh, you guys from Italy? Yeah, we're on our honeymoon. You're on your honeymoon?
Oh, my God.
Oh, my goodness. We talked for a couple minutes. You need to come back to us. We're going to have dinner. And Kay said, this is our last night. I have one thing left. I have some pasta, and you just invited Italians onto the boat, and I have this old dry pasta. She was so concerned. It was the most wonderful evening. He spoke English. She did not, but our friend spoke
Italian.
You know our friend Travis. He took lessons from Soli. So he spoke some Italian and some Spanish. So we sort of muddled through it. Wonderful evening. And they couldn't believe that we invited him onto our boat. And
That's amazing.
that's the extrovert, right?
Yeah,
But yet
exactly.
you
And
have
seizing the moment.
Yeah, you have these
Just
encounters with
enjoying.
people. And it was a wonderful, magical night, our last night on the boat.
It is very interesting that you're saying that because if Kay was not cooperating with your actions, it wouldn't be that sweet. She could have fighted, and that would be a very different story.
That's a very good point. You're right. You're right. That is a very good point.
I remember when me and Marzi, we went on a Europe, we made our own route, and we went to Italy. We started from Rome and Florence, and then we went to Milan, Bellagio, and then we went to France, and then we went to Belgium. And I know that I made Marzi's life miserable because I am who I am. And she wanted to absorb everything and enjoy her moment. And me and my cameras and...
So does that mean that she's documenting you and everything you're doing?
No, the surrounding. But no, I didn't say that. She's saying that.
Okay.
No, it was an awesome trip.
No,
It was-
honestly,
it was
I
a
think
lovely
Marzi is having sometimes hard time to cope with me because I know that I am too much, and I'm saying it because I am saying it because a lot of people they told me that you're too much sometimes.
Good
And
thing we're
I
not
bet-
married.
Huh?
Good thing we're not married.
Yes.
No, but that's exactly the same conversations that keep coming up. Extroverted people kind of force us introverted people to do things that sometimes we're not comfortable with and getting out of our comfort zone. Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes we're happy that we went ahead with it because it's new experiences. But yeah, everybody has their own style.
That's true.
Their own,
Well, here's something I'll tell you, Miriam, Marzi, that you probably cannot relate to, but I have a hard time spending a lot of time by myself.
No, I understand
And-
because that's how you guys are. Yeah.
And
it's-
I don't like that though. I want to spend time. I think I do, but I don't seem to ever. My actions don't match my thoughts, right? And I don't know. I
yeah,
think
and Mariam's the
think I'd like to
same.
try that more.
Yeah, all extroverts are but yeah, I love spending time by myself. It's I feel like it just being able to process my thoughts, and sometimes it's peaceful, sometimes you have a lot of conversations going on, but it's because most of us introverted people process everything internally. We need to have that space so we can process things, but you guys need to process it while you're talking about it out loud with other people, and it's both beautiful, two beautiful worlds, and it's very fun when it's colliding. And it's just like what Mariam's saying, you and Kay were able to understand each other and find maybe a happy medium. Maybe it's more towards being more extroverted, but it's how you go about it, and kind of when you care about someone, whether it's your sister, it's your wife, it's whoever it is in your life that you care about, you adapt yourself with the things that they like, and in the process you learn a lot more. So yeah, it's both of those worlds are beautiful, and I understand your side as well.
The last thing you said, I think, is something I missed earlier about Kay, something I learned about Kay, and it's something that I'm not sure I would have gotten. I don't know that for sure because I can't know that. But, and that is the concept of putting other people's feelings ahead of yours, being conscientious about other people. That goes such a long way. I mean, again, it seems so simple, but it's not. And people don't do it as regularly as maybe they should. And if they did, the world would be a better place. That's Kay. You know, Kay, and to a fault sometimes. You know, it's like she needs to take care of Kay.
Exactly.
But that's something that I learned from her, and I think it has served me well, that to try to remind myself that's, you know, try to be better about that, and really try to put other people's feelings ahead of yours, which is not our normal tendency as humans.
It's very difficult, yeah. But with people that you care about, it's a lot
It should be
easier.
easier. It should be easier.
And it takes practice.
It does. And that's, you know, we had somebody visiting once who asked Kay what the trick was. I'm not going to say who the person was, but the person asked her, well, how do you do it? What's the trick? And she said, what do you mean? Well, the boys always say, please and thank you. Your little boys always say, please and thank you. What's the secret? And Kay said, well, probably because we say please and thank you, right? So what you just said, you have to model that so that they, and not just for them, but for us too, if we're doing it all the time. Do either of you have an Alexa?
And I have
So
a
the
mini
Google?
Google at home.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have the Alexa, and so we always say please and thank you to Alexa because it's just the way we talk, right?
too.
But what's really funny is that if you go out of your way, so I'll say I have connected to some lights. So I say, Alexa, can you turn on Michael's light, which is my bed reading light? And so, and that's fine. I'll say, would you please turn on the light? Thank you, whatever. But if you say it in the right order, so I did last night, I said, Alexa, thank you. And she said, oh, you're so welcome. And she said something like, I really appreciate, you saying that. It really gives me a charge.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I think it's funny. That's a pun because she's electric and it gives her a charge. And I thought to myself, remember, this is a programmer who's writing this stuff. That's what I think about as the programmer. Is like some programmer wrote that stuff, right? And then Kay said it last night, and the Alexa said, you're very welcome. It's just very emphatic. You're very welcome. And I'm like, oh, that's such a great,
Exactly.
Wait. It's a machine, right? It's a machine. We're
But
talking
it
to a
did
machine.
learned.
Yeah. Somebody's programmed it to react that way in kind.
Exactly. And that's all that matters.
And it could be programmed with a different way.
Oh,
Yeah.
we could go down that rabbit
yeah.
hole.
Oh, yeah, that would be a whole.
Yeah, we'd need a couple hours for the whole AI conversation. I think at this point in our life.
yes.
So,
But yeah, exactly. Just you kind of wrapped up everything that we've been talking about, and it's all about just respect and understanding and being kind. And
Yeah.
as long as you have that, with at work, with your partners, with your kids, when people feel like it's a safe place that you can talk about and figure anything out, you can solve any problems, really. So I congratulate the two of you guys for creating that space in your family.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I just remember that we didn't even mention one time our Soli, dear friend,
Yeah.
that
The common person. To this conversation.
religious. Yeah, she's
Right.
listening to our podcast. Every single one of them. She commented. She's like is our most advocate
Yeah.
person, and she's the person that we know you.
Right.
It's Soli.
She's the glue.
Yes, she is the
She
glue.
introduced us. Yeah, exactly.
And I know that you are playing right now with her.
I'm doing my first recital next month.
You are. Oh my
12 years of practicing, eventually you're going to have to do a recital. So I figure I better get it out of the way. I don't know if it's 12 years, but it's a long time I've been practicing and playing. So.
Okay, you better play good because I promise her I'm going to record everything this time.
Oh, well.
Because we didn't for a long time. I used to record her recital every year, and now she
That's
was
unfortunate.
like,
I feel a
asking-
fever coming on.
No,
I have to
no,
call in
it's
sick that day.
good. You know what? That's a fun thing about this recital. Like nobody is going to criticize anybody, and everybody's enjoying it.
Yeah, it's
and
all celebration of your hard work.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey,
Until you don't
look at
play
my
it
piano.
correctly. Right.
Next time, Mariam's going to join too.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go, man.
Hopefully. Anyway, we have to wrap it up. It was so great. Thank you for giving us your time, your story, your life stories, and some of the secrets that it's been never told, or, the things that I hope you never regret that you said it on this podcast.
I couldn't think of two nicer people to tell it to.
Oh.
It was really lovely having you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I
I appreciate
appreciate
it.
your friendship.
Thank you.
And thank you, Kay, for letting him to come here. Hopefully we can have her one of these days too, because I know she has a lot to say too.
Don't hold your breath on that one. I don't think that's happening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck to you, your life journey and your work, your family. And I hope that we can stay connected with you. Whatever you do, whatever you guys are, in the future doing, because we always enjoyed and get a lot of good energy and vibe from you guys.
And admired you. Yeah, you guys have the zest for life, and it's beautiful
Thank you.
to be around.
Thank you for listening to us. Go ahead and wrap it up, Marcy.
Thank you, our listeners. Have a good rest of your day whenever you're listening.
Bye.